Hello, everyone, and welcome to Canadians with Disabilities and Their Allies. My name is Brent Frain. I'm the host for the show. And today I have my MP, Mike Morrice from Kitchener, Ontario, Kitchener Centre, as well as I have Jeffrey Salisbury. I pronounce your name, Jeff. I'm sorry if I don't pronounce your name properly. Jeff is joining me today. Is basically there's an e-petition that Jeff had introduced, and I have Mike with Jeff joining me, and we're going to be talking about the Canada Disability Benefit and the e-petition. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Oh, good. I'm glad that you're here to join us today, and maybe we're going to jump right into this. And
well, I just wanted. Can I jump in before we
sure.
just before we start the chat? I just wanted to, as a producer, thank Mike. He's been a really strong supporter of our podcast. We have a lot of really good politicians coming on that are like the MPs and the MLAs. We've had lots on that are ex politicians or current politicians. But Mike, you always have the honor, like last year too, when Brent was on. He used to be on Twitter Spaces. You had the most appearances on his show, and this year again, you've had the most appearances on the podcast again. So I think last year you were on like 4 times, and this year you've been on 3 times. So
well. I can say thank you though also, Neil, because to me what you're doing is a service for our democracy, because our democracy has to include both listening to folks, doing the work, and then staying accountable. And for me, this is part of the accountability. It's conversations with the disability community to hear from them and then continue to fight. And so I've really appreciated the chance to be with you all and to be back with you again. And I love that you've got Jeff with us this morning. Also, I feel like this is the Ontario takeover of the podcast, and really happy to be a part of it.
Good.
Yeah, from coast to coast, and here we are. And it's great having you both join us today and talk about these pressing issues that affect every single Canadian with a disability. If they have a physical disability, hidden disabilities, it just affects their well-being of not having this Canada Disability Benefit, and as you know, as the disability community has called it from day one, we launched the word DERB originally in Twitter Space. That's where it originated from. It was born in that space.
In Brent's Twitter Space,
yeah. Once upon a time.
It's Brent's fault. It's Brent's fault.
It's my fault. It's my fault. It all landed on my lap. But it's a good thing though that it did, because it really it shined a light on the legislated poverty that Canadians face, and it doesn't have to be that way in Canada. We live in such a wealthy nation that we should be taking care of our citizens, and instead of posturing of saying, we can't really get to it, maybe because you'll delay another program. I mean, so with that being said, I'm going to jump in right away. I'm going to pass the mic right over to you, Mike, and then over to you, Jeff.
All right. So I'll be brief, and I know we got a lot of folks with us again, and I found the questions every time have been so great. I just figured it's important to provide a bit of an update from the last few months, I guess, for folks to be aware of in terms of the advocacy and the opportunities to continue to push. And so that folks are aware, of course, there was another disappointment in the fall economic statement. This is kind of the mini budget that came out in November. And thanks to all of your advocacy, we were pushing both to have the Canada Disability Benefit funded, and then also, should they not do that, in the meantime, to fund the Disability Emergency Response Benefit, which came directly from Brent and Jeff and others across the community. And as you probably all know well, there wasn't a cent in that mini budget for people with disabilities. And so that makes clear that our advocacy needs to continue. Many saw the clip of the finance minister being asked directly about it in the days before the fall economic statement. That didn't give us much hope to start with. But it means we're going to need to continue to push for budget 2024. One of the ways I've been kind of putting this forward is that we need this government to step up and demonstrate that it's worthy of any level of trust from the disability community. After all these years, this is past due and they need to get on with it. I think the second really important piece of advocacy to be aware of is in the development of the regulations. And some of you might have watched the committee proceedings from just last week, I believe it was, where the minister publicly delayed further the follow through on the disability benefit. We've now heard for the first time a timeline as late as June 2025. We were talking before going to air today, originally it was 12 months, then it was 18 months, now it's June 2025. So we need to continue to make clear that that's not acceptable. They need to move more quickly, but the quality of the regulations really matter as well, because as most of you know, almost every important decision is going to be left in the regulations. And as recently as 2 weeks ago, I was hearing from another group that had met with officials who shared with them the possibility that the Canada Disability Benefit might be delivered through the disability tax credit, which you all know well how onerous that application process is. And you probably know that one of the amendments that my team and I got through at committee that came from the disability community is that the application process must be barrier-free. That's actually in the law. It's in the Canada Disability Benefit Act because of all of your advocacy, what used to be known as C-22. It was actually this time last year that we got that amendment passed at committee. And so we also need to actually continue to press for the quality of the regulations. Happy to talk more about some of those pieces of advocacy. Also happy to hear from you on it. Some of you might know there's actually a consultation process that is closing, I believe, tomorrow. Brent or Neil can correct me if I'm wrong.
It's the 21st is the
Okay,
feedback,
Thursday,
right?
Thursday.
The feedback tool.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
So
the
we can
21st.
we can talk about how inadequate that tool is.
Yes.
That tool is not collaboration, and certainly my office will be putting in a submission with the feedback we've heard from the community. If there's more you want me to know leading into that, but you all are also welcome to submit into that consultation process as we also continue to advocate for more true collaboration.
I do agree. Sorry, Mike. I was going to say that I do agree that tool is inadequate, but I made sure that I did put my 2 cents in, and I was very pointed. I didn't leave feedback for every question. There's parts where it says optional, and there's a couple optional things that I didn't give feedback on. But the ones that I did give feedback on, I gave very pointed and very precise
Well,
feedback.
and that's a great point, Neil. For a lot of people, if you look at the tool, it might feel overwhelming. It might feel like a lot. But Neil, really important point. Folks can complete the sections that they feel they're passionate
Right.
about, that they've got some insight they want to add that are relevant to them. So please don't feel that you must complete every section. Every bit that you provide of feedback to the federal government is going to help give them insights directly from Canadians with disabilities, you are the folks that the government needs to be hearing from in whatever way and to whatever extent you feel comfortable doing. And so maybe if we're live on YouTube, somebody could put in the chat the link directly to the consultation.
What I'm going to do is once this video is live, I'll put the link at the bottom of the description.
Perfect.
So I'll make sure I put the link right there. So you
Yeah,
have today and tomorrow. So you only have 2 days to give feedback, which is stupid. Which is stupid, right? It should be.
I know.
Should have been way longer.
It should have been. It should have been way
We're going
longer.
to continue to push for more opportunities, and maybe we can also just share the minister's email address. If you're listening in after that consultation period is closed, please don't feel like you can't still weigh in. We're going to hear from Jeff next in terms of a petition that we've still got going. There's many other ways to advocate. Emailing the minister directly is one of those ways also, and so we'll make sure we share her email with you also. I'll pause there. I know Jeff's got a lot to share in terms of updates also, and then just happy to take questions for those that have any. Thank you again for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And just before I jump over to Jeff, I just wanted to comment regarding the DTC process. Now, I totally agree, with you that in committee that it was supposed to have been, streamlined, where the application process where people would automatically would get that fund. Like a disability, like I guess what I'm trying to say is a disability never goes away. So it doesn't make sense why people should have to then go through a DTC process in order to get that same fund, where it's like, oh no, I now have to prove that I have a disability under DTC, and that's going to expire after a period of time, and then you got to pay a hefty fee to your practitioner, if you can even find a practitioner in Canada, where short doctors, and that puts more onus on the doctors too. They're too busy. I mean, they're dealing with other patients too, and it creates more of a barrier for sure, and it's more. And here's stigma.
Something else, Brent, from Captain Obvious, is that disability doesn't go away when you're 65 either.
No, it doesn't. And you actually get more disabilities as you get older. So it adds more to the more to the puzzle, right? So
that was one of the most offensive parts of the development of C-22, is when the minister told me time and again that we don't need to do more for seniors living with a disability because we're doing enough.
Oh my gosh!
And some folks might know we even tried to amend the bill to get rid of the word working age. Why would we cut off at 65? And probably all know it was ruled out of scope, but the minister at the time herself said, well, we've got other supports in place, and we all know that those supports are totally insufficient. And so it even means once we get the disability benefit, one of the other continued points of advocacy is going to need to be to stand up for seniors with disabilities who are continue even with the disability
those other supports
benefit.
Only kick in if you were able to work.
Right? Yeah, exactly. And even if they do kick in, they're not enough to lift above the poverty line.
Yes.
OAS and GIS don't cut it.
Yeah.
So in so many ways, Jeff, right? Like it's just disingenuous to pretend that enough has been done for people with disabilities over the age of 65. Anyway, sorry, that wasn't even a question. I just couldn't hold back from sharing a bit more. It's totally. I'll pause here and take questions.
Well, we have just before we turn it over to Jeff, we have a comment from Alan. He's a long time. He's on the podcast a lot as well. He has a question. He says, "Hey Mike, how can disabled Canadians create an ad that would resonate with the major media and outlets and governments?"
Well, how's this? Let's hear from Jeff, and then I'll happy to come back because Jeff might have some insights too. But I'm happy to start taking those. I'll reflect a bit on it. Love the idea of an ad, but let's make sure we get to hear from Jeff off the top too.
Yeah.
Sure. Well, over to you, Jeff.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Like, getting it on the news was hard. Like, just to get it on CBC, I had to go down to the local station like 4 times.
Oh, wow.
I tried to get it on CTV, and they always make excuses. Oh, we're too busy. Or we don't have enough staff. Wow. They don't care.
I always say that. I always say that it's because disability is not sexy enough. Like it's one of those things
Like
that
I probably sent out hundreds of emails to different newspapers and TV stations, and none of them were really interested. Most of them don't even reply to you.
Did you try global news?
Oh yeah, I called the local global radio station because we don't have a global TV station in London. And they sounded interested, but then the guy he said we'll have to call you back in a couple of days, and then he never called back. So
yeah, kind of a brush off.
Jeff emailed everybody. I think Jeff, you have this mix of persistence and passion that go a long way.
I sent out thousands of emails. I was emailing mayors, city council people from all over Canada.
Wow.
To your credit,
I literally sent thousands of emails out. That's how we got to the 6,400 signatures.
And it's a lot of work, right? I mean, we have to say, advocacy is a lot of work. Writing emails is a lot of work. I mean, I write emails to my provincial government all the time, and it's annoying when you're sending out stuff and you think, well, it's just being thrown against a brick wall or and it's. But I have to do it anyway, and the same thing with the Human Rights Tribunal. I send those out, kind of knowing that they're gonna be rejected, but I still do it anyway.
Yeah, you never give up. You just keep plugging forward. Advocacy never takes a break.
Jeff, though, can you share some of your wins? You mentioned you had the CBC story locally. Maybe that can be shared with folks, the link, so people can see it.
It was on the CBC local London station, and then we got it on Ontario Today, which was throughout Ontario.
How many listeners, Jeff? Ontario Today. That's a province-wide show. Wow. That's tens of thousands of people who are listening.
Yeah, and then it was also on the Jim Richards show, AM 1010, I think. And then it was in the Globe newspaper.
And
the
CTV
Globe and Mail, National Globe and Mail, Jeff, right?
That is
that's huge. That's huge.
That is.
And CTV did a thing in the political section on it too.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
That is impressive. That's
one persistent, passionate person with a disability who says enough is enough. I'm going to continue knocking and calling until you cover the fact that we are living in legislated poverty. I think, Jeff, it's incredible what you've done. The amount of awareness you've raised. My phone was buzzing off the hook because I joined. So Jeff said, hey, I got an email from Jeff the same day. It said, I'm going to be on this show. I think, Mike, you might want to call in. So I called into the show the day that Jeff was on Ontario Today. And I was able to join for a bit of the conversation. And literally the 24 hours afterwards, my phone was buzzing off the hook. Friends I hadn't heard from in 10 years said, I heard you on CBC. Thanks for the work you're doing. Hopefully you can share the links to some of the coverage that Jeff was able to get, because I think it's totally inspiring.
Yeah, it is totally awesome. Yeah, Jeff, definitely if you can share the links.
Yeah, I'll have to. I'll email them to Neil.
Sure. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
I just wanted to back up a bit too, Jeff, and kind of what was the mindset that kind of set you on the path of like, I got to do something about this? Like what was the one thing that really kind of pushed you and said, I gotta do this?
It was pretty much like the week after when she changed the story to the December 2024. It's like just a week before she was insisting everything was on track for 12 months, and then a week later it's not on track anymore. That was pretty annoying.
Yeah, the part that really got me regarding the delay tactics is apparently the minister had contacted every single province and said that she was in all these meetings. Like they said everything's on track. Well, apparently I guess it's not on track.
No.
And that's why I'm kind of really skeptical with when it came to that timeline, and now the goalpost keeps getting changed further and further down the line, it's saying, well, kick the. I usually use
It's like
the
how much longer until she changes it to 2026 or
yeah,
even
it's
further
like
out?
kicking the can down the road, right? It's like, well,
Yeah.
I'll deal with it later, another time. Yeah, it's rather than dealing with it now, it affects people's lives now. I mean, later it's going to be the not a very good outcome for so many. Yeah, and
Yeah.
so I mean, it really inspires me of hearing your advocacy, Jeff, of like as Mike's mentioned, your persistency of getting the this e-petition really pushed forward and contacting all the media across the country. That is like totally amazing.
I've tried to get a
Awesome.
meeting with her, and she has
Yeah.
no interest. Like I've called her constituent office, I called her office in Ottawa, I've called the ministerial office, I've left like hundreds of messages, sent letters, like dozens of letters.
Mhm.
No reply from her whatsoever.
But it does
Yeah.
go to show you what can be done by one or two people. Like again, in Brent's Twitter Spaces, that was where DERB was born, right?
Yep.
Was in your Twitter Spaces, and then you have Jeff, sending out all those massive amounts of emails, and so that's like two people, or like Brent's small group, and it was like a small group of maybe 10 really devoted people. During one, it was basically during one or two chats, everybody in the group, there was like, again, it was like maybe 8 or 10 people came up with the name DERB, and we just push forward with that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it, Neil. And I've actually sent out invites to the former MP, the one that's was in charge of the Canada Disability Benefit, and then the current minister. Same thing. Like, there's just no response. It's just to ask the questions of why is there such a delay? Why are you not getting this program out? But like again, I mean, Jeff, you're very persistent, and I echo with your advocacy, and we can say advocacy never takes a break, and we got to keep hammering away at them and get this done. I say get her done.
Well, and again, the feedback tool, it's only been live for about a month, and it's like, I'm sorry, but that should be up for a lot more than just a month, right? I mean,
why did it take so long to make a survey? Like, shouldn't
Yeah.
that have been like, couldn't they have had that ready to go for when the thing passed Royal Set and had it right up there? And
if you're
why did it take like 4 or 5 months for them to make a survey?
if you're only going to have it live for a month, it's almost like you didn't want to have feedback in the first place, right?
No.
Yeah, it's like cherry picking, right? It's like saying, well, this is how long I want this this survey to be up, but other surveys, not so long. But we're gonna put in the kind of questions that we want in that survey, very very vague and the very very time restrained timeline on it, of saying, well, it's not a priority, to the government. I mean, should they not be taking care of their citizens as a top priority? And that's the way I look at it. It's always excuses of, well, yeah, we'll wait till another time. It's not, it's just not on our agenda, or it doesn't affect our lives. So, there's no shirt up our back. And and the fact is that it does affect everybody's lives in one way or another. Like, it's a ripple effect across our, across our country. And I mean, if it's not affecting the person with a disability, it affects their family, their friends, their relatives, their caregivers, everybody. Like, it's just because if people don't have the resources with a disability to put back into the community that they live in, it actually affects businesses all across the country. People have, they have what I'm looking for. They have the ability to put back into the economy in one way or another. Everyone has their own the strengths, right? Yeah. So whatever that may be, is it that they want to give back, but how do they give back? Is it just because of work? No, I mean, not everybody can work. I mean, and the government looks at it as, oh, well, we have our jobs program. Well, that's great if you can work. If you can't, then people should be protected under the charter. It is legal. Like, and the government's going against that.
There's so much value that's tied to work, right? But the fact of the matter is, like, everybody has human value, regardless of whether you work or not, and that again is why I'm so adamant against MAiD, because it's like you devalue human life when you say that everybody's got a dollar figure attached to them, and if the dollar figure is too high, then you know what? You just go kill yourself. Then we don't want to support you because it's too expensive.
Yeah, I mean, there's a new survey that just came out this morning saying that one in four people in Canada are really struggling really bad, and it's forecasted for next year it's going to get worse. So my view is like being very proactive. It's getting things done now before things get worse. And I've always been that way. It's like look at a situation, saying, okay, how can I make things better now, and bring people together and get a solution and get a to the problem. And that's why this show started from day one. It's finding the problems, bringing people together, discussing it, finding a resolution to the problem, and discuss what people go through on a day-to-day basis. And I wish that the policy makers would understand that it's not so difficult really to figure things out. And there's always excuses. It's like the dog chasing its tail around and around. Well, eventually the dog's gonna get tired out, right? Yeah.
I mean, they got that CERB thing out there within like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
How could they not? Why does it take 2 years for this
Or
one?
longer.
That one was 2 weeks.
Or even longer. I mean, they promised it way back in 2020.
Yeah.
I was wondering, Mike. This might be one of those stupid questions, but I don't mind asking stupid questions. How
Never stupid
how
questions.
transparent is the government? Like, as you sitting as an MP, how transparent is the government for giving like a full budget breakdown of like everything, like their whole like the entire government budget and the breakdown of all the ministries? Like, do they share that completely, or how does that work?
Yeah,
Good question.
It's not bad in terms of the forecasted spending. And when it comes to the disability community, it's pretty simple. There's $0. Zero. When it comes to things like DERB and the Canada Disability Benefit, we saw in the last federal budget a line item with respect to funding the development of the benefit. So my critique personally would be less about how transparent they are and more about what you all were just talking about, which is the reality that it doesn't take this long to get a benefit out the door. And for all the talk about, oh, we need to move, we got to be moving quickly, there's a lot of rhetoric. But my concern is this is actually about political will. This is about the budget, this is about the dollar amount, and this is about this government's willingness to step up and be progressive and end legislated poverty for people with disabilities. If they wanted to do it, it would have been in the fall economic, it would have been in last year's budget. I think there is, as I've said on the floor of the House of Commons many times, when they were serious about childcare, they did it the opposite order. They put money on the table first, then negotiations with provinces and territories, and then they locked it down with legislation at the end. It's not surprising that here they're doing it the other way around, and I think ultimately it is reflective of a less firm commitment, less keenness to follow through, and it's why all of your advocacy is so important, because they obviously need that pressure. The fact is, everything that you've said before, Brent and Jeff and Neil and others, in terms of how long it took to get CERB out and how quickly that happened, that could be done here too. But I think when we really talk about the substance here, yes, there's some decisions to be made. I'm not trying to undervalue the work of the bureaucracy. There are negotiations with provinces and territories to be had. But if this government was serious, they would have put money in the budget.
Yeah.
And they could do that tomorrow. And they have chosen not to allocate funds for the Canada Disability Benefit. My last question to the PM directly before the House rose, I put it to him this way. I said, you seem to have tens of billions for this pipeline. In fact, it's 30 billion of our money now you've put towards expanding a leaky pipeline, but you can't seem to find a cent when it comes to ending legislated poverty. That's a political decision that they're making. And it doesn't have to be that way. So that's where I would encourage we continue, and you continue all of your really important advocacy. And maybe we can have Jeff talk about his most recent petition, because to me, these petitions are a great way for someone like myself to just lift up directly what's coming from the disability community. And this is our second time now doing this with Jeff.
Over to you, Jeff.
Like the new petition, rather than ask for emergency support up front, because obviously they don't want to do that, we've asked that they change it to a retroactive payment so that when the benefit starts, they give us like payment for the time we waited.
Right.
Because that really doesn't sound like it would require new legislation, like they said, for the if we want support up front. It could be added. That could be something they could put in as a regulation.
Oh, okay.
I love it. I love that. Okay, we didn't get what we wanted last time.
Yeah.
So here's a more creative way to bring them along with us to do the same thing. I think it's a brilliant way to do it. Of course, we need to continue to push in a variety of ways, but it gives another way for us to continue to make that push. I was really proud to support it when we got the email from Jeff describing what he wanted us to put into this next petition. And why not? Again, if they were serious and they're going to wait till however long to get the disability benefit out, well, let's do a retroactive payment to say we promised this then, we're going to follow through. So that's live now. Jeff, do you know when it closes? What's the timing on it?
February 1st.
Great. So lots of time for whenever you might be listening to this over the course of the holidays. If you haven't signed it already, check out the link. Jeff, the petition number, what is it?
E4667.
Yeah.
4667?
Yeah.
Great. Okay. I'm sure Neil and Brent will share the link with folks.
Yeah.
As you heard from Jeff earlier, he was able, with a lot of your help, to get 6,400 signatures on the last one. And we've got more time on this one, I think, too, Jeff. I think you gave a larger window on this one. February 1st also happens to be when the House resumes. So it means that short of any partisan games where we're limited in the time we can present petitions, I'll be able to present it pretty soon after.
And I tried to time it out where it ends before the budget takes place.
Love it. Perfect.
Oh,
it's ideal.
I figure if we want to ask them to put it in the budget, we need to get that out there before then.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We've got a comment in chat from Linda, and she's talking about clawbacks. Like she's concerned that the provinces will just claw everything back, and so I want to hear feedback from both of you about that.
Yeah, I mean, like, from my perspective, Linda, the clawbacks, they don't need to exist anywhere in Canada. But I'm going to get Jeff's perspective on this and Mike's, because, clawbacks, as Neil always mentions, about what he goes through about clawbacks. And, why punish a person just for receiving more money? More money, and it really helps their communities. It helps the person, the communities. It helps everybody. So I'm going to get
just before we turn over, I was going to say that my survivor's pension has been clawed back as unearned income for the last over 10 years now, and I call that a pink unicorn, because it's a denial of truth and reality, right? Because we all know what a pension actually is. Yep. And when you deny what a pension actually is in truth and reality, you're creating a pink unicorn, and that's why I call it a pink unicorn. The clawbacks are a pink unicorn because it's a purposeful denial of truth and reality of something.
It's supposed to be protected income.
It's supposed to be protected income, and it's not. They turn it into a pink unicorn.
Yeah, like the one behind me. There's a pink unicorn right behind me, and I put it up on each show, and people say, "What's that about?" Well, what Neil exactly just explained. It's the government just changes things just on a whim to benefit them. So getting to your question, Linda, about clawbacks. So go over to Jeff and over to you, Mike, on this.
Maybe Jeff first, if Jeff wants to pipe in.
Sure. It just doesn't seem like it'd be that hard to get them like to not do that, because I mean, like when they did that one-time $600 top up, the Ontario didn't really claw anything back for us getting that. And like it seems like all they'd have to do really is sit down with like the head of each province and maybe like find out something they want funding for and say, why don't we give you that if you just leave this alone?
Right.
It's like, give them a little bribe.
Yeah. 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 That's a good basic way of looking at it. Because I know some provinces did claw back, other ones didn't. They chose not to. And again, it comes down to jurisdictional, right? It's like some will do the pink unicorn, other ones won't.
Well, that was one of my hopes of the CDB, and I want to get your feedback on this, Mike. One of my hopes, like we all don't really know how the CDB is gonna, like the actual reality of it. We don't really know what it is yet, right? But my hope of it was that it would force all the provincial governments to eliminate every clawback that's going on right now, because I thought, well, the federal government's not going to have an appetite to say, well, it's okay, you can keep clawing everything back and we'll just top you up after you claw back all the stuff from before. So I was hoping that the CDB would force all provinces to stop all clawbacks as a prerequisite to the CDB. And I just wanted to know your feedback on that, Mike.
So,
Yeah.
for anybody who questioned whether clawbacks were a real issue, I think it was just about a month ago in Ontario, we saw a leaked minister's letter. And I was trying to find the article now. I can't pull it up right now, but the language was something along the lines of looking for planned efficiencies with the rollout of the Canada Disability Benefit. And that is exactly, I think, what so many in the disability community have been telling me they've been so concerned about. That this is actually, this is not about reducing provincial supports. We have to push back on that at every step of the way to ensure that we know that ODSP in Ontario, for example, is completely insufficient. And when we get the disability benefit on top, we need to make sure they don't take a cent away from ODSP. And we have this example now in Ontario that's been in the media with kind of the whispers of what many in the disability community have been concerned about for a long time. We also need to look at clawbacks when it comes to the insurance industry. And there was an amendment from the Senate that I thought was really well crafted to the bill, to C-22, that would have done more to protect Canadians with disabilities from clawbacks in the insurance industry, and it wasn't supported by the governing party. And it's led some folks to be fairly concerned about the extent to which we might be actually subsidizing the insurance industry without that kind of protection in place. And so when we're talking about clawbacks, let's make sure we're talking both about provincial and territorial clawbacks between different levels of government, but also with the insurance industry. The one protection I can offer that we were able to secure, because again, I was, as an MP, had the chance to try to get amendments through to the bill itself. And we took that process very seriously. We got 5 amendments through from my team and I amongst the 9 total that were successful at committee. One of them requires the agreements between provinces and territories and the federal government to be made public. And so you will see all this talk about what those agreements are going to be. When those agreements are finalized, those will be public documents. And I think it's a fair expectation that I have communicated to the minister and to others to have something in that agreement that protects people with disabilities in every single one that would require that province or that territory to not claw back in order for their population to be eligible and to access and the benefit they're entitled to, the Canada Disability Benefit. So we will have access to those documents at the end of the day. We can even share a link if you'd like. It's up on YouTube. On my YouTube, we've posted all 5 of the amendments we got through. You can see for yourself what the discussion was like. In this case, we got some pushback. It wasn't unanimous. I think we won the vote on it 6-5. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the vote is. It's in the bill. There is a requirement there. We weren't able to get language in that addresses clawback specifically or directly because it's federal legislation. So we weren't able to do something to require something of the provinces in a federal bill. This was kind of the next best thing, I guess, to that point about transparency from earlier, of giving more transparency to the disability community on these agreements, and then pushing in our advocacy to make sure that there aren't clawbacks and that these agreements prevent that.
But that actually is another question I have, Mike, is sometimes I wonder how jurisdiction works between the provinces and the federal government. Because I like, for example, just as an example, you have the provinces for environment. They have their own provincial environment ministries, right? And then you have DFO, which is the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, and that's federal. So you kind of think that there should be provincial and federal overlap, but also that federal should, you would think, would supersede anything that the provinces would do. So I kind of wonder, why isn't the federal government in charge of saying, vetoing, saying you can't do that? How does that work? I've always been a little bit hazy on the jurisdiction that's shared between the provinces and federal government.
You mean kind of to oversee it, Neil?
Yeah, I would think that the federal government has more of a power or more of a veto play over the provinces, but maybe not.
Yeah, I'm kind of saying, well, no, you can't do this.
Sort of like a parent, right? It's sort of the paternal and saying, as a paternal parent, no, you cannot do that, right?
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't work quite like that, and I'm not a constitutional lawyer, but in our confederation, there is significant autonomy afforded to provinces and territories, and as someone who works on climate quite a bit, for example, we have recent experiences of where the provinces have taken the federal government to court, and in some cases won, based on the constitutionality of the jurisdiction in which they're looking to intervene. So what I think we can say here, though, is that while disability benefits right now are primarily, not exclusively, but primarily delivered provincially, it's reasonable for the federal government to require of the provinces and territories not to remove existing benefits, so that those same people who receive those benefits will receive the Canada Disability Benefit on top. That's the kind of stacking that I think I've heard from a lot of folks across the disability community. We are expecting this will stack on top to, at minimum, lift folks above the poverty line. And so I think, Neil, it might be worth having somebody talk about that, the constitutionality of it all. Yeah. But I think the more tangible is the agreements. Yeah. Let's see them put in the agreement that, there's not a question of jurisdiction. It's more just a question of do not attempt to remove the inadequate benefits when the federal government attempts to do more and to do better. This needs to go further, and we can't allow for any backsliding to happen in the meantime. And that's, again, I think why that amendment on the agreements being public was so important. It's going to provide more accountability. And to me, transparency in government is important to build up trust in government. And there's certainly a lack of that right now for good reason with the disability community. Well, hopefully these agreements being public is going to help.
Yeah, I think that's the number one concern from a lot of people with disability communities. There's no transparency, right? We just, there's a lot of that we just don't know.
Well, there was also a huge I know discussion, like when I used to have the Twitter Spaces going, and even on other when we launched it onto YouTube. Well, it's always been on YouTube, but since we've done this platform this way, there's always a discussion of when the previous minister would always say, "Well, I don't know who's getting the amount, this and that, provinces versus territories." Well, that people with disabilities in each province and territories, they submit their taxes, and it's a T5007 form, and of course that goes to CRA. So CRA automatically knows who gets how much in each province. And so when the minister would say, "Well, we don't know how to get that out to each
we have
province."
no idea.
Yeah, we don't know the amount. And it was funny because when I talked to CRA, I said, "Well, I was curious on this, Mike." And so I remember phoning them and I said, "Well, so how do you know who's getting provincial disability?" "Well, that's why you file your taxes, sir. That's why we have it." And when you see, we automatically get it from the provinces. They send it in. So when you file your taxes, now we actually compare it exactly, the numbers that you punch in, right? So, and then of course, automatic filing, you don't even have to even do it. You could just auto file, and they've got it. So it's, when it's that jurisdictional thing again, it's I think it's just more excuses for them to delay the process. I want to get Jeffrey's take on that about the T5007. What's your view on that?
Because I know ODSP, they automatically send that to the CRA, so they know what you're getting.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, that's what I mean.
So there's not really anything that they don't know.
Yeah.
Nothing that's hidden there.
No.
Oh, CRA knows a lot about people. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I kind of wonder, well, how much more do they know? Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe they know what I had for breakfast.
Yeah. What's your view on that, Mike? About the forms, how they collect that information about, and then of course now the federal government knows. Okay, well, this is how much provincials now, what they're giving, versus what the federal will now give out.
Well, I learned from all of you when I hear the specifics of the forms that you're speaking about. What I can say is it's one of the reasons why we got that amendment through about automatic eligibility. I think the language we got into the bill was, again, barrier-free, and I gave the example at committee of being automatically enrolled, like is the case for the carbon tax rebate, the climate action incentive. You don't have to apply. When you fill out your taxes, you check a box that says yes, you automatically get your climate action incentive every quarter. I gave that same example when we got this amendment through for the eligibility process and the application process when it comes to the Canada Disability Benefit. It's why I was so upset. That's why I asked about it in question period last Monday. This rumor that we're hearing about the disability tax credit being used as the eligibility mechanism, because that does not follow the law. That is not what we got in C-22.
I don't see the problem with using that as a qualifier, but that shouldn't be the only qualifier.
Yes, that's right.
Agreed.
That's exactly it,
Absolutely.
Right? Because you have to have another way to get in, because if the only way in is through the DTC, you violated one of the terms of the regulations with respect to the extent of being a barrier-free application process. So I'm curious to hear more from you, Jeff. My understanding is if I'm already eligible through DTC, great, but if I'm not, they need to give another mechanism.
Yeah, like they could have CPP disability as one,
right?
Because they know who's on that,
or who's on ODSP.
Or even when you even when you file your taxes, there should be a box there saying I'm on provincial, check it off, boom, and you get it.
Yeah, well, they do that on our taxes. So I mean, when you declare that you have a disability on your taxes, that should be enough right there, right?
Right, but
the
problem on that though, Neil, is I remember I thought for me I don't have the DTC, and so my family doctor said,
but also you have, like we were saying, you have the T5007, which also declares that you're on assistance, right? So both of those in unison
Oh yeah, yeah.
declare like I have a disability, I have a T5007, and
Yep.
I got I'm eligible for the DTC, but both of those in unison should be
Should be
used
fine,
in
yeah.
parallel, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then it's easy. It's easy peasy. Like it's not difficult for the federalists to do that. It's really not. I think it's just excuses myself.
I'm curious. I'm curious. Sorry, go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
I'm taking notes. This is all going to end up in our submission that's going to go in. So really appreciate all this. This is super helpful.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
It's kind of like the RDSP accounts, how they lock those behind the disability tax credit.
That's
right.
true.
Yeah.
Those accounts are a great tool, but like, what good are they if only people with the disability tax credit can have them?
Well, and that's another thing too. Is why does government validate that, and yet they invalidate pensions and claw that back? So we have provincial governments that say, you have your disability registered savings plan. You can have that. That's valid income. But sorry, your pension is not a valid income. I mean, that's just. It's bananas. It's bananas that they do that, right? It's like cherry picking, like we say. It was like, this is valid and this isn't. This is valid and this isn't.
I guess it depends on what negotiating team negotiated that at the time. Maybe they had a better team at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Neil, it's funny because I look back and like when I got my diagnosed, by my family doctor for being a person with disability, provincially, I heard about the federal, like I heard about like a CPPD, right? And my family doctor said, "Well, you're already on provincial. Like, what changes?" And I go, "Well, could you submit this in?" Because the provincial saying, "Well, eventually, you should maybe be applying for the federal." And my doctor goes, "For what? What's changed? Like, I'm not filling out more forms." He says, "No, like you already have a disability. It doesn't go away, Brent. I mean, well, apparently, government wants the disability to go away." He goes, "Well, you are you, and nothing changes, right? I know you. I've known you since you were a little baby, so nothing will change. Your disability doesn't just magically disappear." So, because there was a form I took into him, and it was for a federal, and he goes, "No, I'm not signing no federal form. Like, your disability is your disability, so that's just the way it is." And so with this Canada Disability Benefit, if they want the recipients on provincial disability or territorial to go through a DTC, that's like, Mike, I totally agree with you. And Jeffrey, that's going to be a huge, huge barrier for people who may not qualify through all the red tape, all the bureaucratic mumbo jumbo stuff with the DTC, and then trying to get their family physician or like any practitioner to sign off on that, and then hope that that it goes through. I mean, then it's like saying, well, maybe.
And another problem is, since it's it'll be a federal form. If they want us to get any medical papers filled out, we're gonna have to pay for that out of our pocket.
It's minimum $75, and some doctors charge.
Yeah, that's what my doctor charged me to do the disability tax credit paper.
Yeah, and it's only good for so long too.
Mm-hmm. They approve it for 5 years, and then you got to do it again.
Yeah.
But I wrote to the minister of the CRA, and she got their doctor to review it, and she took away the 5 years for me.
Oh wow.
Oh wow. Well, that's like saying that it's like saying, "Oh, a disability goes away in 5 years."
Mike wants to chime in here.
Well, advocacy.
Yeah.
And if you have issues with the federal government, your MP's office, doesn't matter what political party they're with, doesn't matter how they voted, your MP's office is there to advocate for you to various government departments, including the CRA. So not that they can promise a certain outcome, but their staff, they have staff, it's taxpayer-funded staff that are there to help you work through any issues you might have. So feel free to get in touch with your MP's office to make sure you get what you're entitled to. I do need to get going in the next couple minutes.
Okay.
So would it be okay if I shared a little bit about a session we're doing this afternoon?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Yes.
I wanted certainly to invite all three of you, but anyone who's listening in live at least. We're doing a bit of a double header today. We've got a session at 4 o'clock Eastern that my office is putting on. We've got ASL interpretation happening for that session also. And so if folks are available today at 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific, we just wanted to do a full court press to have as much engagement before the consultation period closes so that folks are aware of it, that we try to just galvanize as much momentum as possible before the closure of that particular consultation. So the registration is on my website. It's MikeMorriceMP.ca, and my name is spelt Morrice for those that haven't seen the spelling before. So if you just go to MikeMorriceMP.ca, you'll see a Zoom link there. You don't need to have your video on. You can join with video off. But we'll be doing a similar style, not quite as well produced as Brent and Neil do it every time. And we're not going to record it. It's only a live session. But for those who want to continue this conversation, if you didn't get questions in, certainly Jeff, with all your advocacy, if you'd be able to join us.
Yeah, I'll probably be there.
We'd love to have you there. We could
I'll be there, Mike.
I'll try to be there.
Great. Well, we'd love to have you all there. Recognize there's a lot on everybody's plates before the holidays, but just do sign up on Zoom beforehand so you'll get the link. All your listeners are welcome to join us also. And for my part, if this is my kind of closing comments, I just want to say thanks again. There is something really special about what you're doing here to bring people across the country together in their advocacy. And Brent and Neil, you did it on Twitter Spaces, almost 3 years ago now. And I'm really just appreciative of how you've been able to, bring this advocacy forward. And I think we've talked about examples of it. Examples like DERB, examples like Jeff's petition, examples like stories in the Globe and Mail that have resulted from your advocacy. And so while there's a lot of work still to do, I just really appreciate how you've each put your time and energy towards really constructive advocacy that is so needed. So thank you all again, and hope you have a wonderful holiday season.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. And I came across, I'm glad that you mentioned about the session this afternoon. I saw actually a posting from Mary Belanger actually on Facebook.
Belanger.
Yeah, Belanger. I actually saw that.
She's one of the petition supporters.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned it because I saw that last night. I got back from visiting with Neil also when we did our live session, and I got back from on the ferry, and I looking at oh wow, I'm like, oh, Mike's gonna be on in the afternoon. I'm like, yay, okay,
double header,
yeah, that's just gonna be fabulous, and I look forward to seeing you on this afternoon.
Yeah,
actually, I guess it'd be almost early evening for you, but early afternoon for us. Yeah,
and it was really cool to have Jeff join as well. It's really cool to have two sides of the coin on
double
one call.
Yeah, it's fabulous. Nice. We'll have to do this again.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for coming on, you guys. This has been totally awesome, and I mean, advocacy, like I say, never takes a break. We just keep pushing forward and holding the policymakers to account and talk about lived experience stories. You want to come on to the show, anyone, please reach out to Neil or myself. Subscribe to Neil Matheson's YouTube channel. You can go to daddybentlegs.com, go under the tab sections, and you can definitely check it all out. Click on what you feel is the most appropriate to you. Submit in your questions, comments. We're here. And
any feedback is always encouraged. Comments on each video, sharing the videos be great.
Yeah, and you can subscribe, and listen to the podcast on Spotify or your favorite app where you find it available. I want to thank everyone for tuning in today, and thank you very much, Jeffrey and Mike, for coming on today.
Great to be back with you again. Looking forward to the next one. Take care.
Yeah, and we'll see you this afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. See you later.
Yeah, thanks you guys.